Hey, Professor Cat, Dr. K here, back again for Chapter 10, which is victims of rapes and other sexual assaults. Like I mentioned in a previous video, we're dealing with a lot of very deep subject matter. If you or someone else has been a victim and this is triggering to you, I want you to reach out to a mental health professional. At the very least, let me know. We could have a talk. I'm not a mental health professional, but sometimes I've been through it. So sometimes just talking it out can help. And of course, if you feel triggered to the point of self-harm, please call the National Suicide Hotline. I just want to throw that out there because as I'm going through this as a previous victim, it's even difficult for me sometimes to get through the subject matter. So I want you to feel like you have someone you can reach out to. You can take a break, go back to it later, and at the very least, let me know what's going on with you so that I can be a little bit more lenient, perhaps, on when things are due, stuff like that, because I want everyone to feel safe in this environment. This is a very deep class, really deep. So, this chapter, especially for victims and friends of victims, male and female, can be very difficult to get through. This talks about the various types of sex assaults and how the system treats perpetrators and victims in these situations, both past and current. I mentioned in a previous video that sometimes, especially for female victims of sexual assault, there used to be, and sometimes still is, a big focus on the background of that victim. Things like what the victim is wearing, and other victim blaming tactics that sort of attempt to make it feel like that person deserved to have that happen to them, or they were asking for that to happen to them. There's also a lot of nuance when it comes to sexual assault, which is also talked about in the book. There's a big difference between being raped at knife point or perhaps being convinced to have sex with someone at a vulnerable moment, and how those are treated differently in the criminal justice system. Also, victims can sometimes feel like the sentence, the punishment does not fit the crime. And I think this goes for all crime, especially because our system is based on, a lot of times we look at previous offenses to determine a sentence. So we see a lot of times in the news where someone we feel got off a little easy. It could be because they were a first-time offender. The justice system does not always work the way that we feel as victims in general, members of society, as we feel it should be working. And especially when it comes to very violating crimes like sex assault. It used to be back in the day that even marital rape wasn't considered a thing. It is now, but it used to be if you were married, that was just, you were expected to submit to that. So there's still a lot that is evolving and changing when it comes to both the prosecution and assistance of victims of sex assault. There's a lot of precautions that we can take. I always like to say the old adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That as vulnerable, if you're a vulnerable person, in my case, I would consider the fact that I am a female, a middle-aged female, does make me vulnerable in certain situations. I may not be vulnerable all the time, but I could be vulnerable in certain situations where I have to look out and protect myself In a perfect world, none of these things would happen to us and we wouldn't have to worry about it. But we do have to look that there are some sketchy people out there that we have to watch out for at all times, and really take care of protecting ourselves. In our chapter summary, it talks a little bit about that, about educating women and girls to take precautions and different situations you might find yourself in that might make you more vulnerable. For example, like I said, I'm a middle-aged lady. If I'm out at night, no offense, but if there's people around, in fact, I might just lock my car doors just cause, whether there's nobody around or not, because that's safety. It only takes a second for somebody to open that unlocked door and steal my purse or put a knife to my throat or whatever might happen. And I want to be a lot more careful. We have to be ever vigilant about what might happen. It kind of shocks me sometimes, the people that still leave their doors open. For example, my elderly parents, my mother has macular degeneration. She can't see very well. I was talking to her on the phone one day and she just yells, "Come in." And I was like, "Mom, what are you doing?" She's like, "Someone's at the door." And it's like, and it turned out to be some roof salesman. But that kind of laughed, but I was really worried because they're vulnerable people. Something could happen to them by just letting random people in the house. So we always have to take precautions for ourselves and for our loved ones when it comes to preventing certain types of crime, and especially when it comes to sexual assault, as this can have long-term mental and physical effects on victims. So thanks again for listening. I know this was a little more serious than some of the other chapters. They're all, like I said, they're pretty deep. And I want you to feel comfortable in taking a break and reaching out if you need it. If you have specific questions of this subject matter, please let me know. Have a great day.